It's time to get serious. You've been using your gimbal wrong this entire time. Okay, maybe I'm being too harsh. You're probably not using your gimbal wrong, but I do think there's a teaching lesson here in how to properly use a gimbal. Now, I'm not saying the way I use a gimbal is the proper way or the only way. Camera movement is absolutely subjective. It's whatever works for your shoot. And normally this would be a video where I could string you along and then give you the answer at the end, but I'm gonna give you the answer right now, and then we're gonna talk about how I might use a gimbal. The answer is the reason some of you might be using your gimbal wrong is that you are living on it all the time. This is a huge thing I saw, especially when these little guys were becoming very popular, that people were just staying on their gimbal for the entirety of their shoots. It happened a lot in music videos. It definitely happened in documentaries, branded content, short films, and it really just made everything kind of look the same. What I would call footage that is too gimbally. Now, gimbally footage is pretty much when you are just on your gimbal the entire day and you're not really thinking too deeply about your shot selection. I get it, it looks cool, it's fun to use, and for certain projects that actually call for it, that could be a useful tool to tell a story. But more often than not, it's just something people do because it looks cool. And then your footage is not really standing out. It tends to just look like everybody else who is living on a gimbal for the entire shoot. So before we get into how I view gimbals and how I might use one on set, let's talk quickly about what's in front of me right now. I'm sorry if I pronounce this incorrectly, but this is the Zhiyun WEEBILL 3E gimbal. Zhiyun was kind enough to sponsor this video because they too championed the idea of using gimbals for storytelling. Full disclosure, they did send me this gimbal and I do get to keep it, but I will give my honest feedback on what I like and what I don't like about this gimbal. And then we'll get into how I use gimbals on set and how I use them as storytelling tools. So it does come in this nice styrofoam box. The gimbal just sits flush in here, and then you get some cables, USB-C, things like that. And for now, we're gonna toss this to the side. So here's the gimbal. Right now I have my Panasonic S1H on here, which in the scheme of mirrorless cameras is not a light one. It's actually got a good amount of heft to it. You can see the gimbal itself is very small. And just for reference, I use a DJI Ronin S2, or I got lost in the names a while ago, but I use the bigger Ronin gimbals. So the first thing I notice is this one is significantly smaller. The stand does come off if you want to make it even smaller. So let's go through the specs real quick. I believe this holds up to roughly 6 pounds. The motors seem pretty strong, so you could probably push that to maybe about 7, but I wouldn't recommend it. So it is used for mirrorless cameras, DSLRs, things that are a little more compact. The battery life is insane. I think it's 16 hours, so you can shoot like all day on this thing. And I also think it only takes roughly 2 to 3 hours to charge via USB-C, so that comes in handy as well. Now, I'm not gonna go through how to balance a gimbal because there are so many videos on that, and hopefully you already know how to do it. But essentially, you want your camera to pretty much stay in place no matter where you put it. And you can see that mine is tilting a little bit. And that brings me to my number one and pretty much only thing that I don't like that much about this gimbal. And that's this area right here. Now on the Ronins, you can kind of adjust that axis by the back part and sliding this arm back and forth. On the WEEBILL, you adjust the camera and slide the camera back and forth. And you can see that it's already hitting this and there's nowhere for it to go and it's tilting that way. That can probably be easily fixed, but when we fire this thing up, you can see the motors are definitely strong enough that it can overpower that, little adjustment that we weren't able to make. It does have full 360-degree rotation, so let's power it up. You just hold the power button down there and you will see that it fires up nice and quick. Now it does have the usual modes you would find on a gimbal. So this one is locked, except you can't tilt, but it will pan. We can go on the full lock mode and it will just stay in place no matter how I turn it. And then we can go on the follow mode where it will follow, pan, and tilt respectively, which is my favorite mode to shoot in. You can see the functionality here on the back. It has a nice little menu, joystick, your shooting modes, and a run stop button if you do connect this camera via Bluetooth. That will apply to certain cameras that you can see on their website, where you can have certain functionality of camera control through the gimbal, which is really nice. So you can assign the buttons, even like the scroll wheels, to adjust something like iris or shutter, and then the record button can act as your run stop. The joystick works nicely. You can see I'm using it right here. It just kind of slowly turns the camera. Obviously you can adjust the speed and all of that in the settings or via an app. And this does have a mode where it will shoot in vertical mode without having to adjust any balancing. That I actually really do like, because sometimes when my clients are asking for both vertical and horizontal, and obviously I'm trying to shoot open gate or do things where I can crop for both, I kind of like the idea that if I am shooting on a gimbal, I can just switch that mode really quick. I can shoot one horizontally and then I can shoot one vertically. That way I can be intentional about my framing and have both shots. I also like how this wheel very finely adjusts the tilt, which is kind of cool. You can also program it to adjust the pan or pretty much anything else you would like. And yeah, it's just very snappy. It works very well. So I'm gonna power this off for now. So this gimbal is not gonna come with like a whole follow focus system or anything like that. But what I do like is it does have this little rail clamp right here, so you can attach accessories if you want. I do wish the clamp was elsewhere, because it will be affecting the weight, whatever you attach on the side there. And the other thing this gimbal does have, which I did not receive, but it does come with kind of a wrist support piece of gear that you can attach at the bottom. And that will actually just rest here on your wrist, and then it has a little handle that you can use as well. So that's gonna take some strain off of your wrist if you're running around on a gimbal all day, which, as stated before, I do not think that you should do. And we're gonna get into why that is very soon. You can see it has, you know, the locking pins on each axis. So you can easily lock the gimbal and everything will just stay in place. And last but not least, this gimbal is $250. That's insane. I don't want to wax poetic about how lucky we are as filmmakers, because I could talk about that for hours, but we are so lucky. Honestly, we should not be complaining about anything at this point. I remember when pistol grip gimbals first came out, I totally blanked on the company, but there was like one company in Los Angeles making them. They were not a big brand, and I think they were about $1,000 or even $1,200. And they had the most basic functionality with like a 5-pound payload. The fact that this thing holds more weight, is tinier, has more functionality for $250 is completely beyond me. This is a very powerful little setup for very cheap. 10 years ago, we would have dreamed to have this on set. Plus, if you use the link in my description, you get an additional 10% off. That's like $225 for a very powerful gimbal. Yes, it doesn't have all of the bells and whistles, but it certainly gets the job done. If I'm using my Nikon ZR with an autofocus lens, I'm going to this every single time. It keeps everything lighter, smaller, easier to use. And then if I have bigger rigs, I can use my Ronin. So this gimbal will definitely have a place in my kit. So all that said, let's get into how I use gimbals and why I actually don't even use the word gimbal that often. That's because I am talking about shot selection. When I'm thinking shot selection, I am thinking crane, jib, dolly in, dolly out, tracking shot, Dana dolly shot, Steadicam shot, etc. Those are the words that I'm thinking about when I'm developing shots for any given project. Now, depending on the budget, the tool I might use for those shots is the gimbal. But you can start to see here where the mindset is coming in and why that's important. It's all about being intentional. When we live on a gimbal all day, I feel like we lose a lot of intention behind our shots, and our story suffers from it. But if you think intentionally, okay, I want this shot to be on a tripod, and then I want this shot to slowly dolly in, and then I want this shot to jib up a little bit, well, you can use a gimbal for those shots. Now, I'm not trying to take anyone's job away and say that a gimbal is a replacement for those shots. If you have the budget, it's always best to get the proper gear to achieve the shots you want. And I'm certainly not suggesting that this replaces a Steadicam. I love my Steadicam ops. They do their job amazingly well, and I understand a Steadicam has a certain purpose and does a certain thing, as do all of these shots. But again, if you're on a budget, the gimbal can come close to achieving that look. Let's do some really quick examples. So let's say you want a sliding shot, something that you might do on a Dana dolly. Well, I'm gonna put this on a mode that limits its tilt and just has pan. And then you simply, there's your sliding shot. You know, here's your Dana dolly. Is it going to be perfect? No, but with enough takes, you can get it pretty close. Let's say I want a dolly in. There you go. Let's say you want a dolly out. Well, same thing, big surprise. Maybe you want some kind of crane or jib shot. There you go. Obviously you're limited by your height, but you can still make small enough movements to achieve a very similar look. So you guys get the idea. They're great for tracking shots, long walk-in talks. And I'll give you a good example. I just did pickups on a feature film and we wanted a long tracking walk-in talk. That's two characters walking a certain amount of distance and you're just tracking as they talk. We needed different coverage on it and their path was about 50 yards long. This was a low budget feature. We did not have money to lay down 50 yards of track. And because they were pickups, we exhausted most of the budget already. So we couldn't hire a Steadicam op. So I used a gimbal. And it turned out great. It looked wonderful. So that's my view on gimbals, and I'm actually gonna give you guys some homework, and I want you to leave your results or your thoughts in the comments. The next shoot you have coming up, maybe it's a music video, maybe it's a wedding, something where you honestly might phone it in and just live on a gimbal all day. I want you to think differently. I want you to choose shots intentionally. I want you to think of the gimbal as a crane, a jib, a Dana dolly, a Steadicam. I want you to plan your shots out and choose them with intention. Now, because this is all subjective, I can't guarantee you anything, but I will place a pretty good bet that you are going to like your results. And your client or your artist or your wedding couple or whoever you're doing the video for is probably gonna like your results too. I don't love using this word, but I can be pretty confident that if you do that, your videos will be more cinematic.
Cinematic.
But honestly, it's true because cinema is about telling a story. And if you're intentional with your shots, you're gonna tell a better story. So stop running around on your gimbal all day, choose your shots wisely, and I'll see you on the next one.